Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be doing a review for Elvis. Now, for me personally, Elvis has always been an important figure in music in my eyes, but I'm not the biggest fan of Elvis personally. I mean, most of the time, my favorite thing that I think I've ever seen from Elvis, which wasn't even technically Elvis himself, was the movie 3,000 Miles to Graceland. But I know who Elvis is, like most people do. I know his songs, I know his music, I've seen some of his old films, but I didn't really, know his life outside of just, how he died. So I was going into this very open-minded, very interested and intrigued about what we were going to do. Director Baz Luhrmann, is brought in on this, and to me, like, the one film of his that obviously most people will know and most people love is Moulin Rouge. And for me, with Moulin Rouge, I enjoyed the film at points, but his over-the-top zealousness, kind of in-your-face kind of thing, I was not particularly a fan of. And usually when he kind of doesn't do that, I tend to really love his approach and how he directs certain things. So with knowing that he was going to be directing this film, I was kind of wondering whether this was going to be an actual biography film of Elvis, or if it was going to be kind of like a over-the-top, zealous kind of biography film, something along the lines of like ROCKETMAN, where it was fantastical and towed the line between fantasy and biography. And frankly, for this, pretty much it's a biography film, but it's done mostly through the eyes of Colonel Parker, played by Tom Hanks, in honestly a ridiculous fat suit and really, really thick fat makeup, which I kind of wish they would have done without. But it's like the story's told, like the monologue narration is told through Tom Hanks's character, but it flips back and forth between Elvis' story and Tom Parker's story. And for the most part, the film is uneven at points, but for the most part is one of the better films of the year. I mean, it's not going to crack my top 10 or anything, but it's one of the better experiences of the year, all because of one main thing, and that is Austin Butler, who plays Elvis. This is an iconic performance by Austin Butler in this film. He fully embodies Elvis in this movie. You're not watching an actor portraying Elvis. You're watching a guy become Elvis, much like Rami Malek did as in Bohemian Rhapsody. It's one of those things where you're watching an actor, and in the middle of the film, you kind of have to pull yourself out of it going, this dude's killing this role. And unlike Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody, Austin Butler is actually singing the songs in this film, instead of, just lip-syncing Freddie Mercury like Malek did in Bohemian Rhapsody. But it's one of those things where you're almost kind of taken aback by it, because he sounds so much like Elvis in this film that you're just kind of embracing Austin Butler's performance in this film. The raw passion and kind of also the overtaking of everything that's happening to him as a character in this film with Elvis, with this over-the-top popularity and kind of trying to figure everything out while also being manipulated and pretty much captive by Colonel Tom Parker. Austin Butler puts on, in my opinion, an Oscar-worthy performance in this. Up to the likes of a Rami Malek's Freddie Mercury performance. He is literally the reason why you should check this film out. He's the reason why this film gets a full star more, in my eyes, than probably what I would have given it without his performance. I will say this, in terms of Baz Luhrmann's direction, there is some Baz Luhrmann-ness to it, but I would say this is, after the first initial probably 20 minutes or so, there's like quick glimpses throughout the film that's very Baz-like, but for the most part he hones it in and tries to tell a serious biography film about the life of Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker. The beginning is all over the place, kind of in terms of just really kind of, I don't want to say it's a mess, because it's not, but it's very Baz Luhrmann-esque. It's like it's coming from everywhere all at once, and quick shots, tons of Elvises across the screen, all this kind of weird things. And then there's the initial interaction, which I just didn't feel or buy, to the point where I was kind of like a little over the top. Like this is a little over the top when Elvis first gets on stage and does his pelvic wiggle thrust, whatever you want to call it, and just watching how the women react. Granted, I know women lost their minds back then, but this is like the way they shot this, or the way they made the women act, like they're on the verge of orgasming watching this, and it's kind of just over the top ridiculous. That's one scene though. I'm not gonna bash it for that, but once we start to get kind of into the film of Elvis growing and going traveling, and you find his life, it finds this groove and it works really, really well. Now, the last hour of the film, because this is a 2 hour and 40-minute film, did it need to be that long? No, it did not need to be that long. It probably could have cut about a good 20-30 minutes of story. The last hour of this film does take place in Las Vegas, when he is doing his show at the International, and that's kind of basically the last hour is kind of the quote-unquote downfall of Elvis, if you want to call it that. Could they have hit that a little harder and probably a little sooner than they did? Absolutely. Could they have hit a little harder on his married life with Priscilla? Absolutely. But for what we got and for what we saw in the film, it captured my attention. There are some points where I felt like either they didn't hit this one particular story hard enough, or they kind of glossed over it when I was really more intrigued about what was going on. But for the most part, Elvis is a very enjoyable 2 hours and 40 minutes into the life of Elvis. Tom Hanks as Colonel Parker, it's an uneven performance. I love Tom Hanks. Everyone loves Tom Hanks. And I love to see Tom Hanks as a villain, but every time I've seen Tom Hanks as a villain in a film, it just, maybe he's just not capable of playing one. It's just, you can't picture him as a villain. And in this one, he is almost like his performance in Lady Killers. He's so much like mustache twirling villain at certain points, where you can tell he's manipulating Elvis or everyone around him, and then he does this kind of like, not directly looking at the camera, but like you can see like it's this shot where no one else is looking at him, and you can see he's kind of going it's over the top comical, and not in the way I think you want that to be. Tom Hanks brings it in what he does in this role, but his drawl that his character has, and just like I said, the ridiculous makeup and fat suit they have him in, it's just every time he starts talking or kind of overtakes the scene, you just kind of want him to shut the hell up. Like, I love Tom Hanks, but you hate his character, which is the point. You want to hate his character. But it's one of those things where, as the film kept going, I wanted less and less of Tom Hanks and more of Austin Butler and kind of the cast around him, because there is a great cast in this film around him. There are certain performances that are a little uneven. I think the actress, I don't see her name on here, so I'm not going to go searching for it, but the actress who played his mom, I think really kind of overplayed it a lot. Every time she was on screen, I was just kind of like, I can't tell, and I apologize for this offense anyone, I couldn't tell if she loved Elvis or wanted to have sex with Elvis throughout most of the film. And she just overacted every scene I saw her in. But Priscilla, played by Olivia DeJonge, I thought she did great. We also get performances from Kelvin Harrison Jr., who plays B.B. King. I really liked his performance. In one scene, there's Alton Mason, who plays Little Richard. He's basically performing Tutti Frutti, and I loved watching that performance. It made me want to see a Little Richard biography, because I really thought that performance was awesome. Much like when I saw One Night in Miami and I saw, the Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and I was like, I want to see their biographies with those actors. Also, Decree, I always say his first name wrong, Decree Montgomery from Power Rangers, Stranger Things. He plays Steve Binder. What we got of him in this film, I actually really, really enjoyed his performance overall. In terms of the music, the first half of the film, or when I say first half, I mean like the first hour and a half of the movie, I was sitting there kind of thinking, there's not as much music as I thought there was going to be. Like, I thought we were going to get a lot more performances and a lot more songs from Elvis in this film. But the latter half, especially when he's in Vegas, you do get a lot more singing from Austin Butler as Elvis. So it did kind of help out the latter half of the film by giving me that, because I kind of felt I was watching a movie about Elvis, but I wasn't seeing Elvis perform. Honestly, when he the to me the iconic shot of the film, which it's in the trailer, it's at this charity event where he's told not to, sway his hips or do anything or lift a pinky or whatever. That moment right there, I think, is the turning point of the film. If you're not invested at that point, if that moment doesn't invest you into Austin Butler's as Elvis, I don't know what more is going to do that by the end of the film. Overall, Elvis, it's messy at points, and that's because of Baz Luhrmann wanting to do Baz Luhrmann things, but when he kind of sticks true to it actually being an actual biography, whether it be from Colonel Tom Parker or whether it be Elvis' side, it's done very well. Certain stories probably could have hit harder, and some things got glossed over they probably should have delved a little bit deeper on. But ultimately, the reason why you should see this film, the reason why I recommend it, and the reason why I give it a highest score as I do, is because of Austin Butler's, in my opinion, Oscar-worthy performance. And it is a performance that deserves to be seen, deserves to be watched, and deserves to be appreciated and applauded. Because he brought something to the screen that a lot of people haven't seen since, the 60s. And that is Elvis Presley on screen. So strong recommendation to check this out if you're a fan of Elvis, or you really just need to see this performance by Austin Butler, because you will not be disappointed. For my overall score, I'm going to give Elvis an 83%, but like I said, his performance in this film jumps that up about a good 10% for my eyes, maybe even 15%. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you can follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we will have a review for The Black Phone. Also, we will have the Movie Crusaders chat about the fall of Pixar. Both those are going to be popping up here very, very shortly on the channel. And next week, Brian Michaels and myself will be back to talk about our half-year review. What of our best films of the year so far, our worst films of the year, what surprised us, what disappointed us. Check back on the channel for that, since we now have entered the halfway mark of 2022. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.